I'm doing this video to explain to you a learning outcome about cancer and how when cells divide out of control can lead to cancer. This is the learning outcome that I promised you I will make a video about. It's very simple, it's very easy if you just listen carefully. Now, we know that we started as single cell organisms, and through cell division we became multicellular organisms. We use mitosis to grow, or we use cell division to grow. We use cell division to repair. So for example, if you cut your hand and you cut your skin, you will notice that after a few days or a week, it will grow again. The reason being is that your body is instructed to repair that damaged tissue by by instructing the cells to divide and make daughter copies. Now, how do we know, or how does the cell know when to divide? Is it something random, or do you have to instruct it specifically to divide? Also, what happens if a cell grows out of control? All of this we will find out in this presentation. Now, how is the cell cycle regulated? That's the first idea or concept that you need to know. Now, there is 3 ways that we can control the cell. The first thing that you need to know that any cell cycle is controlled by something we call regulatory proteins. Now, what is a regulatory protein? This is a type of protein that is produced by your body. The function of this protein is to give instructions to your cell to divide. These proteins can be found inside and outside your cell. For example, if you break a bone, the cells are instructed or stimulated to divide and produce new bone cells, Now, if we replace the cells that are damaged, the body is instructed again to slow down. Think of a copying machine. So if you want to make copies of a paper, let's just say you want to make 25 papers or 25 copies, you put 25 in the machine and then you press copy. It's the same idea in the body. Now, what controls cell division? Now, the protein that controls cell division is a protein called cyclin. Now, cyclin, a lot of you, when we studied mitosis, a lot of you were asking, now Miss, what makes the cell divide? Now, what makes it divide is the protein called cyclin. If you notice, this protein tends to be really high during mitosis, And what do we know about mitosis? Mitosis is the stage when the actual division occurs. So when we are making new cell. Without cyclin, mitosis will not happen. Now, how do we regulate the protein? How do we regulate cell division? You have internal regulators. So basically, we have proteins which are inside the cell. Once the cell wants to divide, once you have grown all the organelles which are necessary for a new cell, these internal regulators or these proteins inside the cell will instruct the cell to start dividing. Then you have another type of proteins called external regulators. These are proteins that respond to events outside the cell. So for example, if you cut yourself, this is something that happens outside the cell. So what happens once you cut yourself and you have an injury in your body? These external proteins will instruct the cells and they start to divide either by making the cell division process faster than usual to repair the tissue or to slow down the cell cycle once we have enough cells in the body. Does that make sense? Now, also, the other type of proteins that we have, These are external proteins. Not external proteins. These are growth factors. Remember, when you are an embryo and you are single cell, you're actually developing fast. You have to grow fast. So cell division tends to be very fast when you are developing as an embryo. The proteins which are responsible to make sure that the embryo grows fast is growth factors. Also, this applies to wound healing. So if you cut yourself, your growth factors will encourage the cell to repair itself. So these are the three types of ways in which we regulate the cell cycle in the body. Now, not all cells live, okay? Some cells die. And what happens when a cell dies, we call it a programmed cell death. So when the cell is not needed anymore in the body, it has to die. We call it the cell programmed death or apoptosis. Now, this is just to give an idea about how cell cycle is regulated. Now, what happens if the cell division goes out of control? Most of you know cancer, which is a disease, okay? In Arabic, they call it saratan. Now, how is cancer formed in the body? Cancer actually is the result of cells dividing uncontrollably. Think of a broken copying machine. When the copying machine breaks down, it will make copies non-stop. It's the same idea with cancer. Cancer cells, these are cells which you cannot regulate. They grow out of control. The body or the regulating proteins do not have an effect on these cells. They divide uncontrollably. When you have a mass of cell or a lot or a lump or a group of cells which are growing massively, it's called a tumor. Okay, in Arabic we call it ورم. Now, الورم عبارة عن شو؟ الورم عبارة عن مجموعة خلايا which are dividing out of control. They are dividing until you have a lump or like a ball of cells. There's two types of tumors that you need to know. This is a tumor, okay? There's two types of tumors that you need to know. There's a benign tumor and a malignant tumor. A benign tumor is not cancerous. So if you have a tumor that's a benign, you don't have cancer. It's just basically a group of cells that divided a lot, but it stays in the same place. It doesn't go to anywhere else. But a malignant tumor is the cancer one. This tumor or these cells do not stay in one place. They go to other cells. They go to nearby cells. And then what they do is that they take the nutrients from the other cells. They affect the nerve connections of these cells, and then they prevent organs from functioning. So a cancerous cell, or not cancer, a cancerous cell or a cancerous tumor, it doesn't stay in one place. It spreads to the other parts. We call it metastasis. It doesn't stay in one place. It goes to other parts. When it goes to other parts, it takes away the nutrients which are needed by the healthy cells, and that eventually can cause problems for the cancer patient, and the organs will stop functioning. Now, what causes cancer? There's so many reasons why we can have cancer. There is a genetic defect. Remember, everything in your body is coded for by genes. Okay? Now, if there is an error or خلل في الجينات, genes which code or genes which regulate cell growth, when they go wrong or when they have a problem in them, you cannot regulate cell growth, and that's when you have cancer. Now, what can cause these genes to become problematic or defected or broken or not working is when you intake things like tobacco, cigarettes, when you smoke cigarette, when you are exposed to radiation, when you have a virus infection. All these things can affect the genes which code for the proteins which control cell growth. When these genes are not working properly, then you will not have cell regulation working properly, and that's when you end up with cancer. The gene that is associated with cancer cells is called P53. If something happens to P53 gene in our body, we end up losing our power to control cell growth, and that's when we have cancer. So this is all you need to know about cancer. How can we cure cancer? We can cure cancer through surgery. We use something called chemotherapy, is when you use chemicals to kill cancer cells or to slow their growth. You can also use radiation or Ish'a. So this is all you need to know about cancer really and cell regulation. Hope this video helps. If you have any questions, please do not hesitate to contact me on my email. This is my email. I'm going to write it down for you. It's selma.dalmar@sts.advt.ac.ae.